Good afternoon. In this talk, we'll try and form an opinion of the character of Lady Macbeth. Now, if Macbeth's ambitions had had good ends, not evil ones, his wife, Lady Macbeth, would have been the perfect partner for him, for she completes, in a sense, Macbeth's personality and provides just those qualities which he lacks. If the play is complete in the form in which we now know it, there exists an understanding between Macbeth and his wife which depends on feelings rather than words. For when we first see Lady Macbeth, she is apparently reading a letter from her husband telling her of the witch's prophecy and the particularly interesting prophecy where he is destined to become a king. She too is intensely ambitious and cannot bear even to mention the kingship directly. She can only say, "Thou shalt be what thou art promised." But she is afraid that he is not evil enough to obtain it by the most direct and immediate means. She reveals her own nature most fully in the address she then makes to the spirits of evil, where she says, "Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of the direst cruelty." This occurs in Act 1, Scene 5. Realizing that her husband's hopes of the crown may be impeded by his feelings of humanity and a softness of nature, she prays that her own similar feelings may be suppressed so that she can become a complement to her husband. This proves that she is not the hard cold, unfeeling villain of the piece, sorry, but one who, if she is to attain what she aims at, will also have to reckon with those finer feelings which are common to most human natures. But she is perhaps more purposeful, less ready to consider secondary matters, even those which concern conscience. And this is why she, unlike her husband, has no need of supernatural encouragement, and therefore why none is given to her by Shakespeare in the play. When her husband comes soon after her first appearance, they understand one another exactly. Without saying so, each realizes that Duncan will not leave the castle alive. Lady Macbeth seems to wish that the whole plan should be put into her hands, for she thinks she is now supremely firm in her purpose. But when the time is right for the murder, and she has urged Macbeth's purpose to the utmost, she shows that she too has an uneasy feeling. For as the noise of Macbeth calling out at the back suggests that he has been discovered and has failed in his attempt, she admits that she could not have done the deed herself. She famously says, "Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it." However, even if her actions are hindered, there is no doubt that Lady Macbeth in the play thinks quickly. Her impassioned speeches when Macbeth first comes to her in the play are in significant contrast to those in which she smoothly and humbly flatters her guest, Duncan, with her offers of service. And so, it is through the play Macbeth is again and again relieved of burdens and accusations because his wife is ready to excuse him and explain away what seems so evil. When Macbeth has murdered Duncan, he is haunted with the vision of murderous hands turned against him. His wife is not so troubled, and when the knocking begins at the outer gate, she is ready with measures to conceal the crime. She sees the blood on his hands and says, "A little water clears us of this deed." How easy is it then? And she realizes that they must act quickly and get on with their night clothes, or people will wonder why they were not in the bed when Duncan was murdered. And when, after the discovery of the murder, Macduff asks Macbeth why he might murder Duncan's attendants, and Macbeth's answer is too sensational to be convincing. His wife quickly notices it and pretends to faint so that attention is distracted from her husband into her. For the murder of Banquo, Macbeth seems at first to be less dependent on his wife. It is he who plans it with the two murderers and then tells his wife about it. She is at first unsure, but is soon convinced, and then Macbeth plays the lordly husband and says, "Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed." This occurs in Act 3. Macbeth cannot know now how soon he will once more need to depend upon her. Banquo's ghost comes to haunt his state banquet. Lady Macbeth again quickly understands what is happening, though only her husband can see the ghost, and she tries to explain it away. When she manages the situation by addressing the guests, telling, "Sit, worthy friends, my lord is often thus, and hath been from his youth." This occurs in Act 3. At the second appearance of Banquo's ghost, she speaks of her husband's fate as a thing of custom, and even hints at a treatment for it. "I pray you speak not, he grows worse and worse." Question enrages him. This again occurs in Act 3. Still, as if the incident were a common one, she really thinks he needs sleep, and as soon as the guests have left in confusion, and they have both mentioned Macduff as the next center of opposition, Macbeth tries to rest. Lady Macbeth, however, is unable to sleep in peace. In the great scene at the beginning of Act 5, she appears with a taper in her hand, walking in her sleep, and reliving her experience and thoughts at the murder of Duncan. Again, she speaks words of encouragement to her husband. She speaks her thoughts on the old man's bleeding, but mostly she thinks of the blood on her own hands, which no water has been able to wash off. She says, "All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand." Act 5. This reveals, without doubt, who is responsible for the crimes, and shows that Lady Macbeth is no more able to free herself from conscience than her husband is. She is not seen again anymore in the play. A cry of women is heard when Macbeth is putting in order the defences of his castle so as to be ready to face a siege, and this cry announces her death. She too has been unable to sleep, and her mind has become disturbed. Malcolm and others believe that she took her own life. To Macbeth, when he hears the news, life seems puzzling and without value. He has lost his best support, and from now on, that is after her death, he must fight alone. Many critics have often pointed out that the unnaturalness of Lady Macbeth began with her vicious prayer and a fervent prayer to nature to unsex her, make her less of a woman with less of womanly feelings, so that she can offer herself as a compliment to Macbeth. So essentially, in this play, Shakespeare portrays Lady Macbeth as a compliment to Macbeth. And when we are convinced at the end that Macbeth has no time to live, we find Lady Macbeth departing, not only from the play but also from life, as if her contribution to the complementarity of Macbeth's life is over and her role is complete. Thank you.